older horses because they have purpose, and it reminds us as older people all have purpose, and we need a job, we need something to do. And these horses have been through a lot of training or been a trail horse or what have you, but they have curiosity that they want to be in relationship with you. They want to be connected with you. And so we don't, particularly look at any horse. We looked at young thoroughbreds as a partner at one time, that we were looking at other groups. But an older horse seems to be just like an older person, pretty centered and mellow and ready for whatever's ahead of them. And so we like that the older horses have purpose, because in the sport horse world, a horse over 15 is not of use anymore. And yet Paula and I have older horses, and, horses live into their 30s and sometimes 40s. So they have a whole new lifetime and career ahead of them. So we felt it would help horses have a job in our society as well.
Elders with purpose. That resonates with us.
Paula, tell us about your sensory boxes. So it's kind of connected horse COVID style solution, right?
Yeah. So we have, been at our own barns, but because of COVID, we haven't been able to do our whole groups, and our participants miss being together. And we talked a little bit earlier about just the healing power of not only horses, but being in nature and being out. And so for Nancy and I, we said, how can we keep people connected? That is really our purpose, that we want people to be connected with each other, and we want people to practice being in the moment. And that's what horses teach us. So we did two things. One, we created a virtual barn where we take the barn and the horses to our participants. And some of them are very funny because horses will do what horses will do. And then the sensory boxes is really taking those elements of the barn and sending them to participants. So our first sensory box has brushes, and it has, we have artists who gave us, donated their time and their talent to create artist cards so that people could feel what it feels like to be color with a horse, to see what it feels like to be in nature. And then we have guided imagery. So people will get these boxes, and we lead them through certain exercises that we do at the barn, and they'll have these sensory triggers. So they have a sachet of hay, and we'll have them get in a quiet place and smell the hay. We'll walk them through, what does that trigger emotionally for you? Because we know that if we get people out of their cognitive minds and their tasks of the day and into their body and into their senses, that what they need to do to relax and what they need to do to let go of any stress in the day happens. And so these things around smelling hay, about having the tactile experience of having a brush in your hand, what it feels like, we have lemons in there, what it feels like to smell a lemon to make lemonade. All of those things will allow people to stop, focus on one thing, be in the moment, and let go of those stresses that people hold in their body.
Such a great solution. Yeah.
And at the barn, we should measure this. There's all these sort of, Nancy and I aren't researchers, but there's all these things like, we wish we could get rid of that boring questionnaire and measure some really fun things. But it is true that people get to the barn and they've had to drive someplace that they don't really know. And so usually people's shoulders are up at their ears. And we take a few deep breaths, we do our opening circle, and anecdotally, I swear, people's, shoulders go down about 3 inches. It's just that idea that I'm at the barn, the smells, the sounds, the ability that the realization that nobody is judging me, that we're just here together. Your body responds to that. And so these sensory boxes are helping people to get back to that response, that your body does want to be in this relaxed mode if you just let it.
And that they come in and they say to us, I feel so accepted here. I don't feel like I have a diagnosis. I feel normal. I feel part of this team. I've never felt so connected to others. And the power of the group is with the horse is what's so beautiful. So we're trying to recreate that until we can get back to the barn, but we are determined to get back to the barn.
Good on you. Well, my colleagues will tell you, and I can't help myself. Almost every topic we choose, no matter what, goes back to our ancestral roots, our hunter-gatherer roots, and who we are as a species. And what you're saying there is that you bring people closer to their inherited environment for 99% of the time we've been on Earth, in nature and the smells and the relationship with the horse. Maybe not as quite as ancient as the species, but it is long, and it, as you said earlier, Nancy, it is very rich and robust. And even if you haven't even been near a horse this time, I know just about everyone is fascinated by a horse, and I think there's some sort of inherited memory we have in our DNA with a horse. I got to believe that.
We believe it. You know, UC Davis has the One Health initiative that if it's good for people, it's good for animals, and it's good for the environment, we should be involved in it. And that's one of the things that really drew Connected Horse collaboration with UC Davis, was this idea that we really do fit into this One Health. We are interrelated. You can't say, you know, environment only impacts environment and we're only going to focus on animals. And because it is that interrelationship that we are on this earth together. And so, of course, we impact each other.
You know, we share so much DNA with so many things, you know, even a plant, you know, a daffodil is like 20%. A horse must be way up there as a mammal, you know, so we're probably sharing like 80 or 85% of our DNA with a horse. So why wouldn't we respond to that? Or they to us?
You know, one other thing that's in my mind that I want to say before I forget is that we've been telling a lot of stories about what the horses give to our participants, but we do have hundreds of examples where our participants are also helping the horses. And so it's this giving and receiving of care, which is just as is a really important component of our community workshops, is that this idea that we as human beings and our horses, it is that reciprocal relationship. We give and we receive, we give and receive. And care partners often have a hard time of receiving. Mm-hmm. And so we do a lot of exercises where we're asking participants to look at what do they think that the horse needs. And we've had horses that have been showing, you know, running back and forth and anxious because we've moved a horse somewhere. And how can we as participants try to help this horse feel more connected with us and to calm down? And that's really beautiful to watch as well, because we want to move that not only are you receiving something from these horses, but you still have something to offer, and you are still of purpose too. And so that relationship piece is really beautiful to watch.
I'm certainly not a part of Connected Horse, although I would like to be. Can I please sign up after the pandemic, right? But in the meantime, what I've made a habit of doing, there's a retirement community very close to my home that's near and dear to my heart with all the levels of living. And so I have the residents over. We do a special time for the residents that live in the memory support area. And it's just them and their families. And it's quieter. It's so meaningful for me. People are at all levels, or have at all stages of living with dementia. And it's a beautiful thing seeing wheelchair marks in my dirt in the barn afterward. It's like my little memento. But people, we feed carrots. The horses are spoiled rotten that day. And people just light up. And they speak, the people who haven't lit up in months light up, and the people who haven't spoken in months speak and engage and interact. And it is such a beautiful thing. The people who are really quite advanced, I've noticed, they will be the ones to take the tail and braid it. It's just been such an honor to see how people interact. And these days, I don't know the residents personally, so I have to wait for afterward for the staff to tell me, Teresa, you have no idea what just happened. Like so-and-so and so-and-so. And they're just so fired up after to have seen the transformation. So I can't appreciate it in the moment, but it is really neat to hear afterwards. So
I do think it's the trust that Nancy and I talk about. It's amazing how fast that the horses trust the participants trust the horses, and they trust each other. And I think that's what allows some of the healing to happen, that when you feel like you're in a non-judgmental place with non-judgmental beings, you're allowed to just feel and to express what you need to share, because we are as beings communal, and so that piece of it I think is really important. And the horses, when you allow it to happen, they want to trust you. They're unconditional, they're non-judgmental, and they want to love, and they want to receive and give love. So that's where I think some of that comes from. But again, we want to figure out how to measure it. But it's beautiful. I can see that visual of a resident, braiding a horse's tail that, hasn't participated in some of these more traditional or passive activities, that is just so intimate, to be able to do that.
And so many of them in this area, Central California, grew up on horses. So I think it has something to do with the past too. Yeah.
Well, we work in senior housing, as you know, and my mentor taught me that a person living with dementia is the true existentialist. Mm. And I think about that every day when we work with individuals in this population, and thinking how an existentialist makes the moment count. Yes. That's what we're doing with the horse. They're making the moment count, and that emotional memory is activated, and that stays with them. And they can tell us about the story later. And the people that you bring out to your community, Teresa, they'll always remember that. And that part, emotional memory, doesn't disappear with dementia. And so we are really trying to activate that for both the care partner and the person with the diagnosis.
I particularly like hearing that. And I saw your video before, and you mentioned that. And again, I was keyed right on it. The fact that you talk about activation, at least in the video as well as here, as usually the people are recently diagnosed with dementia. And so rather than to go, woe is me, and the martyr, and be all negative and think the road is only going downhill, you activate some positivity in them, and that is something they can do, both the caregiver and the person affected. So that's just fantastic.
Yeah, positivity and hope.
Mm-hmm.
We all need that, don't we?
So, pandemic aside, how do you hope Connected Horse will grow?
Well, for us, Connected Horse grew as fast as it did because it really is a passion project. So I think if you believe in something and you believe in the good that it can bring to others, it grows as much as we can make it. For us, we feel like we want Connected Horse to be offered to anybody, anywhere. And the way to do that is for us to train others to do this work. We're sensitive that we don't want to create a program that is sort of this traditional pet therapy, that we've spent a lot of time putting the curriculum together, to putting the research together. So we want people to understand the power of the actual program. So we're committed to putting together those kind of facilitator trainings, which include the programming, which includes a safety. We've talked a lot today about the interactions with people, but as you can imagine, with group work like this, with horses at a barn, there's all sorts of safety things that you have to think about. And we want to offer this to people so that this activation of hope and some control and some healthy living can be spread to anyone throughout this country. And we even have people in Europe that are interested in it, because certainly the role of the horse in Europe is very strong. So we're moving towards that. And of course, we need partners with us to help fund that, because, our big dream, and Nancy talks about this, and she's maybe more patient than I am about this, that our big dream is that insurance companies and healthcare will understand the benefits of this beyond giving somebody a a pill or a hospitalization, that this kind of wellness is important. But that's a